I can see that. Be Scott. Good morning. I'll call the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners to order. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everybody, and welcome all of you that are in attendance and those who are watching us on YouTube Live. Today is August 6th, first board meeting of the month. We have a pretty full agenda, so we'll get right at it. The first order of business is to the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying.
Can you, Mr. Chair? Yeah. Can you just kind of share what the items are on the agenda item?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm not to the consent agenda. We can approve the agenda and then go to the consent.
I was on the consent.
Yeah, sorry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. The next item is the consent agenda, the routine business that we do or repeat. The approval of the July 18th, 2024 County Board legal minutes. You receive those in your packet. If you don't see any corrections, we'll leave that as it stands. The approval of the auditor's warrants and claims, you also receive that. The renewal of agreements for school resource office for New London Spicer High School. And then the last one is the appointment of the commissioners to the 2024 canvassing board. That one I would just mention that Commissioner Berg and Commissioner Dwayne Anderson will be the members of this board that will serve on the canvassing board. So unless anybody has any desire to pull something from the consent agenda, I would seek a motion to approve that.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. All right. First order of business, general business discussion is the resolution 2024 resolution accepting the offer of the Minnesota Public Facilities Authority to purchase a general obligation sewer revenue note. And I said that a lot quicker than I read this thing. So, Corey, you're going to give us Cliff's notes on it.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Corey Smith, the director out of Glacial Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District. I'm here before you today to bring forward resolution 2024-21, like Roger said, accepting the offer from the Minnesota PFA, Public Facilities Authority, to purchase the General Obligation Sewer Revenue Note Series 2024, providing for its issuance, accepting a PSIG, which is Point Source Implementation Grant, and authorizing execution of a bond purchase and project loan agreement for the note. A little bit about this project, just a little recap. Design was awarded to Bolton and Mink back in 2022. April 4th of this year, the project was awarded to Gritter Construction out of Buffalo, Minnesota, and the construction related services to Bolton and Mink. For this project, so again, this is a phase 2 wastewater treatment facility project. It's all happening east of Green Lake at our wastewater plant. For this, we will be accepting the PSIG grant of $6,901,809 and committed to a clean water SRF, so state revolving fund loan of $15,461,096. The total project cost with the 5% mandatory PFA contingency is $22,362,905. The loan itself will be at 2.31% interest, and it will be a 25-year loan. Because we are going through the PFA, it is estimated that it will save our users approximately $2.28 million in interest costs when compared to the market rate financing. We have updated our rate study, and it shows that the recommended rate structure will handle the debt service of this project. Once the phase 2 project is completed in March of 2026, we will update our rate study again to reflect the final project cost. After the resolution is adopted, PFA will send out the contract for electronic signatures. And then once completed, we will start our monthly draw request to reimburse our expenses. On July 22nd, 2024, at the Glacial Lakes Commission meeting, the commission requested that the county board consider a resolution to authorize the issuance of its $15,461,096 loan and accept the PSEC grant money of $9,601,809.
So you've heard the list notes of the presentation, so I would look for a recommendation to a resolution 2024 -21.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to adopt resolution 2024-21.
Second.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on resolution 2024-21. Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion or questions?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Burke.
thank you. Just a comment, 2.31% interest rate on a 25-year, on a $22 million project.
Correct.
People got to be pretty happy about that.
Correct, yeah, and that's exactly why we went through the PFAs to get that low interest rate and save our users some dollars.
Very good. Very good. Well done.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just as a reminder, this $6.9 million grant was never a given, correct? That was something that we were really, really counting on.
Correct, yes, we were eligible up to 7 million, and as you've seen, we received 6.9 of it. And this last bond and bill that didn't go through, if that would have went through, we would have got up to 11 million if that did go through, so. We're thankful we did get the 6.9.
Outstanding. Thank you.
And I appreciate all the hard work. And a reminder to anybody who's watching, these are big dollars. There's no question about it. And we'll be paying on that by many of us, by the time many of us board members are going to be a memory. And so it's a big deal, but it is paid for by the users. This is not something all the citizens of the county pay for. It's only by those that are served by the district. And so just serve that as I say that as a reminder. So thank you. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Corey. Up next, the quarterly financial report.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kelsey Baker, Candioi County Administrator. Today we'll have our quarterly financial report. Karen Anderson was going to provide the overall budget from January to June. She is unable to make it today, so I'll provide that short summary. Mel Odens will do the Public Works, and Carol Tullefson will come up to the podium and provide the Human Services. This is something that we've talked about, that we're going to provide more quarterly financial updates to the board. We're still kind of fine tuning, so we want to hear from you, and we want your feedback if we can fine tune some reports, if there's something different we can provide. I will say the report Karen provided, we're not quite there with the report that we want. It's taken a little bit more time and work in our IFS, our financial software system. And so hopefully at the third quarter, we'll have the report ready to go for the board. But we still wanted to provide January to June year to date. And so I'll kind of go over some of those highlights, but we can kick off with Carol Tullefson.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so you have two documents. I will start with the Human Services budget. I want to just remind everyone, last year when we were doing the budget, we did not have a Health and Human Services Director. So we worked with Administrator Baker, spent many hours working on this, got to know each other really well. So what you have here again is a summary. Behind each one of these lines is several other budget lines. So if we had done this 100% correct, each one of these lines would be at 50%. We're halfway through the year, so each line should be at 50%. So if you're looking at revenues, it's a good thing we're over. We're at 53.6%. I'm just gonna, again, some highlights here, things that I'm want to just point out. So when you look at recoveries, public assistance, and purchase social services, you will see that we're at 155.7%. So what that is when someone who passes away is on medical assistance, we are able to recover some of the medical assistance money from their estate. So that line right now is high. Actually, 236,000 of that is from estate recoveries. But with that, we will get a bill and have to pay back 50% of what we've recovered to the feds, 25% of what we recovered to the state. So that number fluctuates. Again, we do all the work to get the recovery, and then they bill us back 75%. We only keep 25% as an incentive, although we do all the legwork, attorneys, banks, personal representatives. So that number is really high right now, but again, we will get billed and a lot of that will be going away. The ARP funds, this is our second year of receiving funds. This was for the increase in the child protection supervisor, one additional supervisor, and the manager position that was created. If you look at expenditures, we are under, which is also good, over in revenues, under in expenditures. So we're very healthy halfway through the year in human services. Okay. And if you recall from our budget planning meeting we had, again, there are many documents that Caroline and I review monthly to see where these, where our budget is at. So in expenditures, we can have lines that are actually overspent, but then we have just as many or more that are underspent. So again, we're very healthy. We're at 46% of expenditures. So then why don't we jump over to public health? Again, a summary page, many lines of budget behind each one of these. So for our revenues, also here we are over, we're at 63%. The one line I want to point out here is the fee for service line. We're at 80%. I wanted to pull some numbers together. So a big part of this is billing insurances for our nurse visits. The nurse visits we bill at $195 per visit. So I pulled some numbers. So in 2019, pre-COVID, we did 3,382 nurse visits. Our lowest after that was 2021. We did 1,638. In 2024, we're on track to do 4,330. So we are higher than pre-COVID in our nurse visits. Yes. And again, we bill all the insurances, some private insurances, whatever we can to get some of that revenue. In our expenditures, we have the second line there is planner position with the CHB. We, at the time of the budget last year, didn't know who would be hiring. This is a joint position, again, with the CHB, Candy Renville CHB. So they advertised for a planner, we advertised for a planner, the candidate ended up coming in that the CHB wanted through Renville. So that person is a employee of Renville, but we still pay half of his salary. So it's paid, it's just down in a different line. Again, it's not salary, it's a contract position or contract that we pay now. Actually, currently, his position is 100% funded and will be for a couple of years. Okay. So again, here as well, we are over in revenues and under in expenditures, so very healthy both budgets. Any questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Burke.
Thank you. Good to be under budget right on. That's great. This looks really well. Can you, a couple questions. I understand the fees for service that we have. The other fees then, or 75% as it revenues to the positive.
Yes, our first line, that's food pool and lodging.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So that is, again, food pool and lodging licensing. So we send out the letters for renewals. It's an annual renewal. We send that letter in November. So we get a large portion in December and then a large portion in January. And then in between, it's usually just the special event fees that come up, or if a new business would open. But again, it's an annual cycle for their licensing.
And then one other follow-up question, please, Mr. Chair. When you're talking about the recoveries, is there one person working in that area? Is there how many people? And
we have one person currently who does estate recoveries. That's very specialized. We have a unit down at DHS, Special Recoveries Unit, who they work with very closely. And again, that's staffed by all attorneys. So this is, as you can imagine, it's a very uncomfortable job.
That's,
You're dealing with people who have had a loved one pass away. So it's and again, it's a very hard job. But we do, again, fair and equitable. Everyone is treated the same. There's a process in place. We follow that. And again, if we have any questions, we can reach out to the attorneys at DHS.
yeah, it sounds like it'd be a very complicated job.
It is.
Very, a lot of people skills involved in that, but yet a lot of time and to even track them down,
Yes.
to monitor how many situations like that are out there.
And so there have been some families who have not wanted to cooperate. And so actually, Mr. Baker's office has gotten involved with those. Because again,
For anybody who's ever been involved with the settling of an estate, I think you've probably been through this process and know too that they don't leave much behind. So you're very efficient.
we're as delicate as we can be, but again, we have a job to do and we do it fair and equitable. So
Other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So down here in Canada County Public Health, for revenues, you have fees and then you had fee for service. The fee for service is like nurse visits.
those are, that's mainly insurance billing.
Yeah, but what are some of the other fees, like an
So
example?
up above that first line, that's the licensing fees.
Okay,
That's vending machine fees.
okay,
That's special events. If someone has a church event and they need to have a special event license.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
And if I may,
Go ahead.
thank you. And that would also include like things like tobacco licenses and
Yes.
all of those types of
Yes.
services that public health provides. as well.
License. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's confusing. Makes perfect sense to us. Fees and fees for service.
Right.
Well, and the question Commissioner Berg asked about the ebb and flow of revenue and expenses, and I think Public Works, we're going to see that and hear the same thing, that a lot of it has to do with timing, unless it's our levy, which you get essentially half in spring and half in fall, but these things come in at different times, and so it would explain some of the perhaps high percent on some of the revenue and maybe some of the lower percents on
Yes.
expenditures.
Some reimbursement or some of the allocations we get at the beginning of the year. So again, you'd start off really high and then you don't get any more of those later. So
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Commissioner.
just a follow-up, for the levy amount, as far as revenue, that's mainly salaries, am I correct? Or what else would be involved in that? Or that
we
not
don't
your
actually
area?
piece it out that way. I mean, it's to pay what the shortfall is between the expected revenues and expected expenditures. So really any of those expenditures, I guess you could say
Would be.
the levy covers.
Okay.
Purchase social services. If we have someone who's in a NOCA and we can't get out, that would
Levy
be
those.
levy dollars. Of course, we have reserves as well, which they're healthy and we haven't had to dip into them, but again, those unexpected expenditures with clients, we can't control.
All right, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Well, thank you very much for that report. It helps to have you explain it as we look at it. Now we'll move on to the Public Works Department for the explanation of the revenue and expenses there.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I've got a two-page summary in there. I know there's a lot more in there that you can digress through, but it all adds up to these two sheets. Basically, when we track our budget, it's in 5 major areas. The first one is administration, which is about 30 to 40% of our levy type budget. We're tracking reasonably within 2% and that would be like you see, personnel, communications, miscellaneous supplies. So that to me is tracking very well. Our road maintenance, you're going to see we're in the positive on that. Maybe a couple of things to note there on the contracted dust treatment work. We did have a savings in the salt sand because we had an open winter, but where it kind of stung us a little bit was on County Road 7 and County Road 1, where some of the roads that the heavy hauling was done. We had a lot more patching that we did a lot earlier than what we expected. So it kind of countered itself. An open winter, maybe we saved a lot of money on sand and salt and blading, but then we also spent it on like some more patching. So we're still in the positive on the road maintenance side. Construction, the big thing you're going to see there, we're 2.4 million into. Now this is compared to a year ago today. So a year ago today, we didn't start construction as early as we did this year. So we are 2.3 million ahead of where we were last year. And I think the main thing to maybe point out there would be when I talk at Road and Bridge about this $3 million bandwidth of payments, that shows it very clear why we need that, because we would not be able to pay the contractors that started, because state fiscal year is July 1, federal fiscal year is September 30th, and the levy doesn't come in until the end of July 1. So we need this balance to carry, especially when we start early. Our budget is more of an accrual basis. The other budgets usually are like more of a cash basis. Ours is an accrual basis. If that makes any sense. And then you turn to the next page, equipment and shop, we're well ahead there, and that's primarily fuel and motor because of the open winter, which we will take. And then we get down into facility maintenance, and that's plus or minus 7,000. So that's that to me is right on schedule. And I think when you look at the overall total, we're ahead by 900 and some $1,000. And last year, you might remember we finished up positive about 405, but that got eaten up very early when we talk about the road maintenance side. So we feel good about the budget. We feel we're in a healthy position, and the revenue for construction is coming in like as expected. So, any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Odens? When you talk about having money in the bank because of the differences in the fiscal years, it kind of reminds me of our industry. We have to save what we make in the last quarter of the year to make sure we can get ourselves through the skinny part of the first quarter of the next year, and helps me to kind of put that information in the perspective I understand. But I do understand that sometimes you need that money in the bank for when times are thin. So, any other comments or questions?
I got one.
Go ahead.
So on this here expenses, in 23, we replaced a lot of like cutting edges and stuff on the plows. They were on the road every day. Where does that fall in on these expenses? Kind of.
That would be in equipment and shop supplies. Where and more
Under supplies or
supplies, and then some of it is it's for the most part it's in the equipment and shop for the equipment.
okay. All right, thank you.
Other questions? Thank you. Appreciate it. Kelsey, you get the hard work of explaining that ISF report.
Well, I'm not going to go through line by line, but I'll save you some time. But when I spoke with Karen this morning, she was really happy to see where we're at for year to date. We're supposed to be at 50%. We're off on some. I would echo what Carol and Mel say too. Sometimes we get bills sooner in the year rather than later. Sometimes we'll expend things, but for the most part, like I said, this report isn't our final report that we're going to be submitting for our quarterly financial report. This is way more in detail that we would want to provide for a quarterly financial report. But overall, we're right on track. Like I said, there's some that are over the 50% mark. There are some that are way under, maybe just because we haven't purchased some software, equipment, things like that. And so I'm just going to pose the question to you. Did anything jump out that you have a question about?
Any questions? When I looked at it, I tend to scroll down to the bottom line and look at those percents that everybody else had looked at as where we are compared to last year, where we are compared to, the budget. And I didn't really see anything that was glaringly, out of line. And so, I was comfortable with it. Anybody else have any comments or questions? Commissioner Berg.
Maybe ask this question back to you too. Any trends you are seeing that we should be aware of, or is this pretty well similar to last year? And anything that stands out that you think would be interesting for us to know?
Two things that stand out. SWCD, the county building and Fund 13, we expended the 300,000 for the SWCD building that you'll see in there. So that percentage is a little higher. We took that out of the budget, but that will essentially be corrected at the end of the year. That will come out of the reserves that the board approved last year. And then the county parks for County Park East, the grant. That dollar amount came out that wasn't budgeted for this year. It was budgeted for in 23. That came out for in this budget here for 2024. Those were the two things that I would highlight. But honestly, I think kudos to the department heads, the supervisors, the team leads for really watching the budget this year. I think we're on better track than we were this time last year. So I feel really confident in where we're going to end up this year. You know, I hate to even say that out loud because now watch, something's going to happen. But I kudos to the department heads and everybody. We talk about this at our department head meetings on being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, working towards our goals, also with being progressive on what we're doing. And so everybody's been very cognizant of that this year, and they're doing a really good job on that.
Other comments or questions? Trust me, we do that in private business too. We encourage our staff to, pick up that paper clip that's on the floor instead of sweeping it up. And so every little bit adds up. So we appreciate everybody's effort. Anything else, or are we completed?
Yep, we're completed.
Well, thank you for that report. All right. Up next, the letter of intent to transfer ownership of the 1208 Olena Avenue Southeast Wilmerman property. Kelsey, you will also report on that one.
Correct. Good morning, Kelsey Baker, Candioi County Administrator. This was requested to be on the agenda again, so I have more information that was included. So you have the letter of intent from the state. You have the 16-bed signed lease. That was the original lease that was signed. And then you have an amendment 18, which is the 2022 reconciliation. And then the amendment 19, which is for the remodel. So I think really what we have before you today, and those were in your board packets.
Right. Could you, before you go on, could you review the letter that you presented at the last meeting, our letter to the state?
Are the county's letter to the state?
Yeah. Wasn't that the letter of the offer to sell for no consideration?
No, we've never sent a letter to the state. The state sent us a letter.
This is the same letter we looked at last.
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
that's in the
Got it.
same information. Yep, I have not sent anything to the state or received anything.
Price hasn't changed, or has it?
No. But I think, I'm not going to review these lease agreements. I'm not going to review these amendments. I know you're all capable of being prepared for today. I think the biggest question, what I would pose to the commissioners today, if you were to take action, is we really have these two options. We could continue as is and continue owning this facility on paper, continue getting reimbursed for what we're doing. We cannot be reimbursed for administrative costs. That has been discussed in the past. I did pose the question. They're not going to reimburse for my time, Andy's time, Melissa's time, or Karen Anderson's time. And so that's just something that we have dealt with. So we could really stay status quo. I mean, that's your decision. The other option we have is if we were to transfer ownership, it would transfer back over to the state, and we would not be the sole owner of this property. We wouldn't have to do the staff time, administrative costs, things like that. Let's say, though, that we did transfer ownership and the state owns it on paper, financially, all of that. And the state calls me one day in 15 years and says, hey, we're gonna close this location. It's no longer needed in this area. These are all just all, this is hypothesis, right? So they could say, we're no longer needing this facility here. You know, then they would go through those options that I talked about at the last board meeting. If no other state agency would want this facility, then they would offer it to the city or the county in that region if we were to purchase it. Where I think the question is that you may all have now is, if we were to purchase that back then, we would have to purchase it for the appraised value. So we haven't put a dollar into it now other than our administrative cost, but if you were to make this decision, that could potentially be a cost. And I think that answers some of the questions that the board members had after the last board meeting. I think that would be, that's your financial decision. However, so then if we were to purchase it back, or if we were not to transfer ownership and we were to continue owning it, and in 15 years the state comes and wants to close it, then it would be up to us as the owner, the property owner, if we were to move X organization into this facility, would we have a viable candidate that we could do minimum renovation and move this organization in? If not, then we would have to sell this property. And that would be through an RFP process, similar to what we did with the recycling center. Not the same analogy, but very similar to what we did with the recycling center. So we could say this is what it's appraised at, and what we would, you know, we don't know what we would get for an offer if we didn't have a viable candidate, or organization, I should say, to come into this property. So really, I would stand for any questions. I think we've provided the information. I think I clarified some information from the last board meeting to today. And Andy Thorson is here today as well. So I would stand by for any questions that you may have.
All right, any questions for Ms. Baker? Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, thank you. What does it cost us to take care of this building year over year? Is that something that we have quantified, or?
No.
I mean, clearly we're a landlord here, and you know, I suspect we're maybe not falling. You know, we're not doing taking care of this building at a deficit per se, but still, it is a strain on staff and everything else. You talked also about the. Well, maybe I should let you answer the first question before I.
It was hard to gather that information because it would really be an average, and that average is not accurate really based off each year. Like, I would say I don't spend as much time on it than the previous administrator for other reasons. But I would say Andy's time and Karen's time does stay consistent. Like I said, we get reimbursed fully for our facility maintenance individual that maintains that building. But I would say it's roughly, at the quarter end, it could be up to 10 hours that week. And that's maybe a little high, but it could be anywhere from 5 to 10 hours.
Okay. And excuse me. And going back to the hypotheticals that you posed, there is no guarantee that we would ever have someone else to go in to this particular facility. I mean, it's built for a pretty specific purpose. Because I think I'm hearing you say if we could remodel it in a minimal fashion, well, that means then you need some sort of similar type of entity. You know, maybe a treatment center or something along those lines. And those entities don't grow on trees.
Correct. I think it would be, if we would have a viable organization that we could move in, but it would really, I mean, none of us could even be here when that could happen. So I would think that the county would look at options within the community. What would be the need? I think the county would go in the direction, if this facility closed and it was a behavioral health facility, we would look to another health facility that would move into that location, because of the need that we have here in this region.
And conversely, there's no guarantee that the state is going to continue operating here for that 15 years. They could, I mean, they could make a decision, next year to begin to end this contract.
Absolutely. And that's, I think that's the main question is we just don't know when that would be. I don't foresee it happening just because of the need that we have here.
Right.
I don't foresee that happening. And talking with human services staff, we need this facility here. It is a viable organization within the city of Wilmer and within this region. I don't foresee that happening, but I can also predict the future.
Right. Thank you.
Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It was very interesting to go through the contract and see some of the bills, and I understand better when I hear that it's a hassle to do all this, and it is taking a lot of time. But also in the back of my mind is that there was a reason why the board did this kind of contract and agreed to not put administrative costs in there and negotiated that in, because that was the county's contribution to having the service here, and we wanted it in Kansas County, and the EDC did as well at that time, because it does bring in revenue in other ways as well. And it's important to have it centered here and provide those services for the 18 counties, and now it's for the whole state. But keeping that in mind, that was our intent, and for the last 16 years, we've been doing that. And the good news is paid for now, and thus then it takes a lot of pressure off us than what we would have to if they left and we owned it, that we could find other use for it, because it's a multi-million-dollar building, way I understand, and we don't have the actual value of that building, but it's well kept up and in good shape, and that was part of the agreement. So going forward, I see that we'd be in a position, if we didn't sell it and they decided to back out of the lease, we're in a position we could look at other options as well. That there would be, I'm sure there'd be investors in Wilmer and some groups that I know that'd be happy to be able to buy a multi-million-dollar building at a reduced cost to use it in our community, and it'd be a valuable resource some way or another. And because of it is, I think there's probably more options than we know, and I'm not sure we explored them all. But I can just think of many off the top of my head, which is just my idea. Gee, maybe we need a new crisis center, or the 18 County Mental Health Consortium might need to provide additional services and housing, or we need the extra space for it, and the list could go on. And even some of these group homes that we have, that they're spread out through Wilmer, could maybe somehow break that up and make that work. So I think we'd have options to get rid of it. And to me, the value is that, yes, we put administrative costs in, but once we got it paid, that if we ever sell it, we get that administrative cost back, because it's going to be more valuable than that's where we get our dollars back. We get something back for it. And thus, by giving it to the state at this point, we are basically then forfeiting the administrative costs that we put into it, if that makes sense. And that's one reason I'm thinking we still should be looking at hanging on to it. And it's really pretty clear in the lease that that part of the lease is we could actually sell it to another entity or another leaser, and not the state. I'm not sure we'd want to buy it, because that's a very tight lease, and they would have to honor many different things in there where the state would want them to do and continue. I hope they continue, and I expect that they will, and they got a good service. And I just feel that we should maybe ride this out until the end of this 5-year period and see where we're at as well at that time, since we've been doing it. So,
If
but
I may.
please answer. Yeah,
Go ahead.
my questions.
And I think why we're looking into this now is because we have this window. I think when 2018 and we started going just to operational costs, the county posed the question then. And I think now when we're in the middle of this renewal process, I posed the question to the state. And so that's really why this all came about. But I did forget to say, I know at the last meeting too, we had asked for a legal opinion from our county attorney. And if it's okay, maybe we could ask Shane kind of what his thoughts are on the lease, the legalities of things.
Oh, yes, some of it's been sprinkled in with comments already. Well, as Mr. Berg indicated, it's a pretty tight agreement as it is. pretty much only one basis for termination, and that's from the state just saying, not getting legislative funding. So they, on their own efforts, try to dry that up, or the legislature on their own decide not to fund this, then they could. But otherwise, there are 4 options of renewable 5-year periods. We're in the middle of the second one. That goes through June 30th, 2028. And then the agreement has options on how you go about the rental, setting the rental price. That happens a year before. So as Ms. Baker said, we're in the middle of it, so we can have time. And state has already indicated on other types of terms they're not open to, because you can always ask if they'll change things. They've said no. That kind of ends the matter. And as far as the scenarios Ms. Baker laid out for repurchasing or reselling, that's correct. That's in Chapter 16B, where if we sold it to them and then later on they want to issue it for sale, it'd go through state agencies first or the U of M. They refuse, then it's open to the city, county, or local government entities. And statute says it can't be sold for less than the appraised value of the lands. Who knows what that will be at that time? But there's no $0, $1 transaction.
Going back.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So we should really probably use our questions for clarification, not for before we get a motion. And if there's a motion, then we can pick up the debate. So any other, well, one question I had for clarity is, have we ever had an appraisal done on the building?
Not to my knowledge.
No. All right. And have we ever had an architectural firm look at what it would cost to, say, repurpose that for any other usage? Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
Any other clarifying questions? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion one way or the other. Does anybody want to
A
make
question?
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kelsey, you mentioned that you had initiated this conversation with the state, but this has been done previously by the previous administrator as well. These conversations have taken place over it. So there's some historical context here, and what I think I was taking away from when this was presented to us last time was that this is kind of an administrative burden. And it's, not necessarily something that maybe the county should be doing. I mean, we built it so we could have the jobs here. That was the only way it was going to happen because the state was not building new facilities at that time, correct? So, I mean, this is a tough call because it is an asset. I'm honestly torn on this one.
Commissioner Burton?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you brought up some really good points too. And I'm thinking that it's not uncommon for these kind of things that, for an even amount, we trade it back, or between government agencies, we do this, we give roads back to townships or to a city or whatever. And I understand those. This is a whole different animal, to say, and a large amount of investment that we have in this. And it is worth several million. And I just feel really uncomfortable with the idea that we would lose any chance of getting any of those administrative dollars back, if we give it to the state. And if we give it to the state, as it was clear, they wouldn't just give it back to us and we'd have to pay for it and we wouldn't be buying it back. And so then we run into that struggle. And also, just historically, after 1 year, Candioi County took out the loan for this. There was a lot of rumors going on that the state was going to close it down. So we just never know based on administration too. And I'm not sure if I understand all this on the state level of the legislative dollars that they get for this. And I'm not sure in their budget is that legislative dollars that really earmarked for this specific facility, or can they just do their budget and gee, it doesn't fit into our budget. I don't know how that all works. So I, I don't know what the future holds, and I feel uncomfortable that they're making a decision to support giving it away at this point.
Anybody else want to, want to chime in on this?
Mr. Chair, I just want to make a comment. I know this is my 4th year as being a county commissioner, and this was just something that the previous administrator mentioned basically right off the bat to me that this was something he would like to just turn back to the state if we ever got a chance. So a lot of times we look at things and I don't know. As a farmer, I always built grain bins, and one guy made a comment to me. It'd probably be cheaper if you just haul it to the elevator and store it there. A long term upkeep and stuff. And the comment that was made to me at the time was that farmers always like to hug things. And is this something my question then is this something we want to hug, or would we be better, more efficient if we just turn it back to the state? The building's still gonna be there. It can't go away. They can't lift it off the ground and move it somewhere else. It's gonna stay there. Somebody would use it in the future if it did close down. It would be either repurposed or used for the same purpose. And I think short term, the state would then have to pick up the administrative costs on their own, and they'd have to hire people. So maybe there'd be more jobs that would be available for that. Maybe it'll only be 1 or 2, but it would add a little bit, at least short term. Long term, nobody can predict what the future is going to be. So I think I would go with the recommendation of what the administrator here has said and what the past administrator has said as well.
Is that a motion?
Oh, I want to have other people have their discussion if they want to have some.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
Well, I'm gonna be a crazy person, and I just to get it on the floor for discussion, I'm gonna make a motion to go with the recommendations to send it back to the state. I'm really torn too. I can see both ways. I can understand, but I think, I agree with what Dwayne said. You sometimes have to just let things go that aren't really that we need to hold on to it. But I'll make a motion to accept the recommendations,
And that recommendation is?
to send it back to the state.
So we have a motion on the floor to turn this facility over to the state of Minnesota for no consideration. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. The motion was made by Commissioner Dale Anderson. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And I'd just like to reply to some of the concerns. We do not have a fiscal statement in the sense that how much money do we have invested in this already? And I think we're way short of the value of the property, and thus not having invested as administrative costs in this. And our intent was, I believe, as a county back then, was that we would hang on to this and be our property when we're done. And it's certainly obvious it's at least 1 or 2 or 3 million more, if not a lot more than that value of that property. And we won't know what that is, but I don't know what our expenses are. So I know there's some hassle, but it's an investment that we do have. And I just feel uncomfortable that we invested in this and we have our time in this as well as administrative stuff, that we would just say goodbye to that and not hang on to this investment and asset we have. This is an asset that we have on our books and it's property. And not knowing where the state goes, we still have a little bit of control, even though the state's got us really tied into this. We are not, from a fiscal point of view, I do not think we're even close to administrative costs getting close to what the value of the property is. So from a financial point of view, I don't think it's a good financial move. And I would feel very uncomfortable giving away a multi-million-dollar business to the state at this point, not knowing what's going to happen to it, and that we don't own it anymore, and we wouldn't have the option, since it's paid for, to sell it at what price we felt to recoup its costs and maybe influence what could be used it for.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate my colleague's passion for this, and he brings up a number of good points. I appreciate the discussion. When we needed to dispose of the recycling center. We did not receive anything close to the appraised value of that. I mean, and we were, I think, fortunate to get what we did, because I recall, I mean, we had one offer for something like $90,000, that we'll take it off your hands sort of thing. Potentially, you could have that sort of issue here if we held on to it. And now, we maybe get relative pennies on the dollar for it. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So yeah, I mean, this makes it a tough call. For me, it's coming down to, as was pointed out by Dwayne, our previous administrator was recommending this course of action as well, that we go ahead and turn that back to the state. That's the direction that I'm leaning. I can't see that that's horrible advice, if it's coming from both the current administrator and and our previous administrator.
Anyone else? Well, I first of all, I want to acknowledge all of the work that former Administrator Kleindahl and Andy Thorson, Facilities Manager, and Karen Anderson, our Chief Financial Officer, have made over the years, and continue to make. I mean, every year, and I understand there's some administrative costs to this, but I'm going to have a hard time supporting disposing of an asset that, even as Commissioner Gardner says, we might sell for pennies on the dollar. It's pennies more than what we get by giving it away. And so I've reviewed the documents. When I asked you last time if you could get this information to us so we could sleep on it, I found out what that really means is you lay awake night thinking about it. You don't get to sleep. And I've laid awake nights several times thinking about this. And so a couple of things that I think are should be noted. I really see 4 different ways that this lease could be terminated. They can't just terminate the lease, as Commissioner Gardner suggested, by ending it tomorrow. It has to be because appropriations have been cut off by the legislature for the servicing of this hospital. So that's one way. The other one is by mutual agreement, what we're considering doing right now. The third way is we can sell this property. It's off our hands, but the lease is still there. It's like something on the deed of your property. If there's a restriction on your deed, when you sell it, the buyer has to abide by that restriction. So a new buyer would have to abide by the lease. And the third way is at maturity. When this thing matures in 15 years, the lease is over with. The thing we get from the lease now is a guarantee that as long as they get the money from the state, we have this hospital operating here. And that's the major thing I think we need to look at, is the services that it provides for the clients that need it. So I don't see any urgency either. We have 3.5 years left on this lease. We have to renew the lease a year in advance. We have to notify them. We have to let them know that we plan to do it, so that when that year is up, we're ready to renew it. The first one following sorry, I got to stay leaned into the mics. Once the mortgage was paid off after 15 years, it's logical to think that our negotiating a lease, that first lease after the mortgage is paid off, is going to be really difficult, because now we're entering new ground. The old lease covered our principal and interest. The new one is just operating costs. And so I understand there was a lot of time by Larry Kleindahl in getting to where we are at today, and Karen and Andy. But I would guess that in 3.5 years or 2.5, when we have to start the process, that it's basically a flywheel effect. We'll look at the lease and say, okay, interest rates went down, so we're going to pay a little less interest on the money in reserve. or labor costs went up, so we're gonna raise a little bit more money to do that. And, you know, the work that Karen and Andy have to do, well, is a pain. All of our jobs have work that are a pain. I grew up in the farm where I had to pick rocks and pick mustard and pitch out calf pens. It was not fun work, but it was part of the business. And it comes with the territory. And I, I accept that in exchange for having that hospital at our disposal. I just have a hard time seeing we're going to give it away for $1 today. And oh, by the way, if we shut this hospital down in 5 years, you get to pay appraised value for it. And they, to Commissioner Gardner's point, they could quit at any time if they own the property because now they no longer have a lease. The lease is what gives us that hospital, as long as they get appropriations from the state of Minnesota. So I am not going to be able to, we talked about the Glacier Lake Sewer District bond that we just took out. I said 25 years is a long ways from now. Well, this is only 15 years. Some of us may make that. And then it's ours. And we can do with it what we want. Hopefully we can continue to operate it as a hospital. So and I'm not saying I'm close to the idea, but until I knew what the value was and had an idea what it would cost to repurpose it, say, in architecture's opinion, I just don't, I can't support transferring this to the state of Minnesota.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, my colleagues. I know it's a tough decision for many of us, and I respect everybody's decision when we finally vote on this as well. But just a couple comments. I think this is its own animal, or however I want to say it. It's so unique situation. It's not the recycling center. You know, the recycling center wasn't much to it. Let's put it that way. We can't really, it's apples and oranges. Where this part of the lease is that it is kept up. It is a good building. And I'm not sure, if we all even know where the building is or what it looks like. It's a quality building, many square feet, and it's worth millions. And so I think you bring up a point too. I think I feel uncomfortable making that decision without additional information. If we're really losing money, our salaries, our jobs, it's almost like a job description to do it. We've been doing it for 16 years. And if we're really losing a lot of money, I'd like to know what that is because, if it's going to affect our budget. Right now, it's an asset we have. And it's a multi-million-dollar asset. And just to walk away from that, I feel from a taxpayer's point of view, I feel uncomfortable. I think I've said enough, but now you know where I stand.
And I just want to clarify too, is that when we talk about the cost to operate this facility, the only cost that we're really talking about that we aren't getting reimbursed for. So if Andy buys a keg of nails or a box of screws, or somebody goes out there and shovels a sidewalk or mows the lawn, we're getting reimbursed for that. It's the part of the invoicing it's the administrative costs of the part that we're not getting invoiced for. And again, I know it's a pain, but I suspect it's not as much as one would think it is. Certainly not enough to justify giving the building away, in my view. So, any other comments? Commissioner Dale.
I guess I'm just really, really, really struggling with this. It's probably making me have more butterflies than anything I've done so far. But the thing that I just went back in my head is that building committee kind of brought this to Kelsey to bring this up, and I could think that's the thing that I'm struggling with the most is we kind of push this a little bit ourselves. I don't know if it's the right answer or not. We probably will never know that because who knows? But I think that I don't know. I just think this is a really hard decision, and I think that either way we go, we probably will be fine. But it definitely is a hard decision. That's what I'm struggling with.
So I'm on the facilities committee with Commissioner Dale Anderson, and I agree. we first brought this up, but based on anecdotal evidence that this is a really pain in the butt to own this property, we now have more information than what we had prior to even suggesting that we explore it. And the information I have now, for me, does not support the transfer of this property. So, last chance for questions or comments. Hearing none, I'm going to take a roll call vote. I'm going to start on your end, Commissioner Gardner.
Aye.
So, repeat the motion, would you, for me? You didn't write the motion. Motion
I
on,
didn't make the
the
motion.
motion, no. I'll repeat it. The motion on the floor, Melissa, did you write it down? Otherwise, if I don't, I'll capture it. Motion on the floor is to transfer the 16-bed hospital on Olena Avenue to the state of Minnesota for no consideration.
Yes.
Okay, Attorney Baker agrees with that. Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Anderson,
Aye.
Commissioner Berg,
Nay.
chair votes nay. Motion carries.
Right.
We will recess for 5 minutes. We'll reconvene the Kansas County Board of Commissioners meeting. Up next is the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs Grant Agreement with Trish Appledorn. Welcome, Trish.
Good morning. Annually, every year we have received this grant since I've been here. It's gone up substantially though, but we've gotten $10,000 the past 7 years. So this year we did something kind of different. We've done a lot of radio advertising in the past. This year we pulled our advisory group together to discuss what they wanted to see different for the veterans. So we had come up with a couple plans. We're at the fair tomorrow. We did a boat cruise a couple weeks ago. We're gonna have a Veterans Resource event in October at the Wilmer Legion. Where we'll have a bunch of vendors. We'll advertise for that, and then for Veterans Day as well. Annabeth hasn't had any new equipment in her office for a couple of years, so I think we're worth looking into for that. So I put down equipment. And then also we like having a breakfast in the spring just to break it up to get all the veterans together. So that's kind of what I have planned for the $10,000 grant this year. You don't have to sign anything today. You guys just have to approve the $10,000 from the state of Minnesota, and they will send over electronic signatures or the forms to be signed electronically.
So you heard the recommendation from staff to accept the $10,000 grant from the state Minnesota Department of Veteran Affairs.
Yep.
How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to accept the grant agreement.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves to accept the grant agreement for Veteran Affairs. Do I hear a second?
I will second this.
Mr. Berg seconds. Any discussion?
Yes,
Go ahead.
it's going to be a lot easier to vote.
Yeah.
That's it? Okay.
That's it.
All right. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Trish.
Thank you. You guys have a great day.
Yep, thanks.
Up next, Kansas County Economic Development Report from Michelle Moratsky. Pinch hitting, I think, today for our pretty much brand new director.
Well, because the budget process started prior to Patrick O'Rourke joining the organization, I've been involved in it with our former director since I started in March.
And even though I introduced you for the record, now that you're at the podium,
Yes.
introduce yourself. And
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Michelle Moratsky, serving as the Business Development Manager for Kandiyohi County Economic Development. Thank you for giving us a little bit of time this morning for this informational presentation regarding the budget. In your board packet, you will see that KCED's proposed budget for 2025 is balanced with total revenues of about $848,000. The total expenses are about $847,000. The surplus is only about 0.2%. Under $2,000, so we keep a very tight budget. I'll just go through a few of the items. I won't go line by line, just give you a high-level overview, and then I'm happy to answer any questions after we get through that. So on the revenue side, if you look at page 1, that is 36.6% less than the current budget of $1.34 million. If we remove the $500,000 child care grant that KCED was awarded from DEED in June this year, and included on the amended budget for May 9th, there is a proposed 1.2% increase over the amended budget. This grant, the DEED grant, is a pass-through grant, as KCED is the fiscal host, and we will facilitate the reimbursement and reporting between the subgrantees and DEED. Looking at the Elevate revenue, we have submitted year 1 expenses to DEED for reimbursement, and there was nearly $50,000 unspent. Those dollars will roll into the second budget year for the state. The state is, of course, July 1 to June 30th, so things get a little weird. We are in the process of developing the Business Assistance Services Program, which is kind of the after someone has gone through the Elevate program, they've graduated, now how do we support them? We support them through this BAS program. We may not use the full $50,000 in the 2024 budget year. What is not used will roll over and be available in 2025. So revenues are expected to increase on the loan side, specifically in the revolving loan fund repayments on the interest side. As we have loaned out most of our available fund, we will see an increase in interest receivables as those payments are coming in. We are requesting a 4.9% increase in the county tax levy. This is driven primarily by the pending move that was approved by the Joint Powers Board at a special meeting on April 10th, 2024. This move will also help us provide dedicated space for the Elevate Community Business Academy, in addition to space available for committee and board meetings with more than 12 people. If you've been in our conference room, you know how important that might be. All right, so looking at the expense side, the proposed budget is reduced by about $506,000 or 37%. Again, this is primarily due to the one-time deed grant for childcare. If we take out that $500,000 out of the budget, we have a proposed expense decrease of less than 1%. So page 2, we start with the CEO program, the Creating Entrepreneurial Opportunities. That is actually a pass-through program. We don't keep any revenues. We don't have any expenditures with it. And we did decrease it just a little bit just based on the actual expenses that were this year. And then if you look at the Elevate section, the Elevate program, it is self-sustaining with the $203,500 deed grant and the generous contributions from Southwest Initiative Foundation and other donors. I definitely want to recognize those as well. All right. Looking at page 3, excuse me, the total committee expenses will decrease from about $618,000 to about $116,000, which is an 81% decrease. Again, adjusting the 2024 amount to remove that $500,000 deed grant, the expenses decreased by 1.5% for committee expenses. So I just want to highlight a couple of items in the business retention and expansion section on the bottom of page 3 and top of page 4. That is where childcare, Highway 23 Coalition, and workforce are listed. The budget remained relatively stable, sans the deed childcare grant, of course, with a small decrease of, again, 1.5%. So first, our shared services agreement with UCAP has been approved for a 2-year term through December 31st of 2026. This partnership has been invaluable with helping provide stability to the child care providers in Candy-Ojai County. Tana Stuckey is our child care community coordinator. She has brought a lot of expertise, new ideas, and relationships to this role. We are just really excited to continue this shared services agreement and partnership with UCAP. The increase in our contract with UCAP is 4.8% and includes a stipulation that KCED will not be responsible for more than $29,900 each year of the contract. We added a small amount of $500 just for supplies and travel to assist with the cost to attend conferences or other needs related to the Rural Child Care Innovation Program or the Strategic Supply Program, which is a follow-up to the RCCIP managed through First Children's Finance. Second, the Highway 23 Coalition budget, we reduced that by $500. This is because KCED is no longer managing the meeting minutes or doing the fiscal hosting of that organization. So we just have fewer expenses with it. Finally, the Workforce Development section on page 4 includes the Workforce Solutions Summit. This is a successful event that was held 2 years ago with 78 attendees. We have started discussions with local partners to host a similar event in 2025. Suggested topics include housing, childcare, broadband, and other quality of life concerns that affect attracting and retaining employees here in Candy-Ojai County. Under the tourism and leisure travel, just a note that we've maintained funding to the CVB at the $25,000 level, paid in quarterly installments. At our recent Joint Powers meeting, we did hear from Beth Fisher, director over at the CVB, and kind of learned about the activities that they work on. All right, page 5. Excuse me. The employee compensation section shows a decrease due to the placeholder numbers with the hiring of a new executive director. As the budget process had already started when the offer was made and accepted, we have chosen to keep the amounts as projected. The actual total compensation for the executive director is expected to be close to that projected amount. Administrative expenses are proposed to be 49% less than in 2024. The executive search was 31% of the 2024 administrative budget, $24,000, and is not anticipated to be in the 2025 budget. Finally, looking on page 6, our proposed office expenses will increase by 22%. The bulk of this is associated with our new rent costs at the Apple Tree Square location. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Moratsky?
Sure.
Go ahead, Commissioner Bird.
I'm not sure there could be a lot of questions. I know several of us have looked at this budget several times already. I'd also like to add that the Joint Operations Board also approved this before the
Yes,
regular board did as well. So
absolutely.
it looks like a very reasonable budget and support.
Thank you.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Michelle, thank you for this. I appreciate all the hard work that you've done on this, as well as the outgoing director, Aaron Backman. And we're excited to have Patrick O'Rourke on board as our new executive director. And we are looking forward to being able to continue the great things that have been happening over the past 8+ years. And just want to let you know that we appreciate your role in this, as well as all of our staff over at the EDC. And we're really excited about the relocation over to the Apple Tree Square.
Yeah.
Larger, better, more professional space. I think it's going to be a absolute gem for the community and the county. We're really looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It definitely is a team effort over at KCE.
Any other comments or questions? All right. Well, thank you for coming in and for the report.
Thank you.
Do we
We're going to vote.
we have an action?
It's only information, I believe.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is the information.
All right. Next on the agenda, and thank you for your patience, is Margaret Johnson, District Manager for the Kennywide County Soil and Water Conservation District. Oh, sorry. You're going to have to introduce yourselves. I thought it was one, but
it's all right.
you need to anyway for the video and
Janelle Williamson, Chairman of the SWCD. I've been on the board for 6 years. I've been in public service for a lot longer than that. And the Candy SWCD mission is to encourage the wise use of land and water, and to treat these resources in accordance with their needs for protection and improvement. So today we're asking for county allocation. I see it more as an investment in the lakes, in the land, and the people of Kandahar County. A lot of the grants that we receive do need a local match, a local percentage match, in order to even receive these grants. So if we get less money from the county allocation, a lot less money from the grants is coming into this county also. I'll turn it over to Tom.
thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Tom Gilbertson. I'm one of the newer supervisors with the Soil and Water Conservation District, and just appreciate all the support that the county has given to the Kandahar County Soil and Water Conservation District, and just really excited to share what we've been doing over this last year and our projected future for the current citizens here in Kandahar County.
Thank you. Welcome. Is it our internet?
No, it's not.
So if one of you would come back up here, I do have a couple questions. So I've been a commissioner almost 11 and a half years, and there's been a fairly big changeover of supervisors just in the last few years, correct? Danelle, you're not there that many years yet, are you?
6 years.
You're there 6 already.
Yep. We had two supervisors that passed away
Yeah.
within the same year. So,
That's 6 years ago already? For either of them? No.
that was
Oh.
a few years ago that they passed away.
Yeah. Whose position did you was preceded you? Not sure.
No.
Okay, that's fine. How about you, Tom?
Yeah, I'm new as of this last September, so I've been almost a year.
And you replaced one of the
It would have been
supervisors.
Doug
Johnson.
Johnson.
Yeah. I know Doug was
Many years.
he was quite active and pretty passionate about that work, and I think he passed rather suddenly. When he got sick and passed rather suddenly. And maybe a little background about what you guys do when you're not doing soil water conservation advice.
Yeah, well, one other item is we get to serve on other committees, such as the North Fork and so forth, and serving on those committees throughout the region and helping to keep those waters clean and learning. I know I've sat in on a couple of those committee meetings with you, Roger, and it has been very nice to not only serve right here in Candioi County, but the entire region. And knowing that most waters flow out of Candioi County, we're one of the first stewards of those waters, and that leads to great soil here in the community as well.
And your straight job?
Financial advisor, born and raised here in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Thank you. How about you, Danelle?
So I have many titles. My full-time job is farming. Been farming since I was 18 or before that when I was helping my parents. I've been on the township board for 22 years. I'm on the County Association of Townships since 2008. I'm was recently elected to the state township board last year, so I'm almost got a year in on that. Like I said, I've been on the soil and water. I'm on a mutual insurance board, active in the church on the church board, and many roles. So
Active. And if I'm not mistaken, your spouse is an ag teacher in Kirkwood KMS. Is that
correct?
Do I have
Yep.
that right?
She's been on her ag teacher for 21, 22 years. So a lot of dedication and yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're done? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As long as we're just kind of visiting a little bit about
Let us
water.
know when you're ready.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll just finish
Go
my
ahead.
comment real quick. For several years now, the county board has really been looking at, broadband, childcare, housing, and mental health as our priorities. And we talk a lot about water, but I think, we need a fifth priority for Candioi County. That with our lakes, with our water, and the things we're doing, we're moving ahead. But there's a lot of work to do, and it's very important. So this should be a priority, what you all do, and thank you.
All right. Well, congratulations on the equipment.
It's these federal computers, they're locked down. So I tried it earlier and it worked. And then, of course, yeah.
And we need your introduction.
Yes, Margaret Johnson, District Manager of Candioi Soil and Water. I've been there a couple of years, and
Excuse me,
you were
Margaret.
right. We did lose 2 supervisors within my first year.
Let me just remind you, I was watching the recording of our last meeting, and these new mics probably don't pick up as well as the old ones.
Okay.
Be a little conscious of that as you're presenting.
Okay. Mr. Chair, members of the board, thanks for having me here today. I have just some things to follow up on, and we met our supervisors, the ones that were able to make it. So thanks again for having us, and now that we got IT to work. I'm going to just start with a thank you to all of you. This is our future offices and the home of our district operations starting in 2025, sometime this spring. This wouldn't have happened without the contributions from you. So I just want to let you know how much we appreciate it. It's been a long time coming. When I started at the district, several supervisors of mine had said it was definitely a dream to have our own space, to be able to expand our operations and fulfill the needs of our county. So come and visit. We're at we'll be at 1001 High Avenue, which is south of Robbins Island, next to the USDA building, which we will be moving out of into this new space. So it's been a long time coming. We do own the property and we have a shed space there that houses our tree cooler, our seed cooler, and all of our equipment. So we are expanding that shed thanks to all of you. So I just want to thank you for that. And I'm here to talk today about our partial operation allocation. And I know it's a big ask this year. This is obviously something that we've been working on since December of 2023. And the board has made a lot of decisions and a lot of policy changes based on the needs of our county. And so our ask today is $536,000. I say that's a partial operation allocation because there are some things that we are able to use from state and federal grants that do help in the operation of our district. So our income, most of it, because we are a state organization or a subdivision of the state, does come from state grants. And we do have opportunities with federal grants, but they're incredibly competitive. And on the expenses side, when I talk about projects and services today, and I'm going to talk very briefly about some of the things that we have going on, over 70% of that money that comes in for those projects and services goes directly to the soil, to the water, to the landowner, to the private landowner owning those soils and water. So just so you're aware, I'll move into some of the things that we do, and you can certainly ask questions if you have them. So we're a political subdivision of the state. We are, maybe I'll just provide some history on soil and waters. Back in the 1930s, the Dust Bowl era was tough for the Midwest, and in Washington, D.C., there was a lot of decisions being made that were not local decisions for Minnesota. And so back in the 30s, they decided that it would be prudent to have soil and waters where you could have elected officials like our supervisors here on the same ballot that you guys are, making decisions for the local district offices, making decisions for the local landowners, setting policy, providing technical assistance. And that is basically the premise of a locally elected board, to make decisions on local soil and water. And so we were actually established by citizen petition back in the 50s. So we celebrated 75 years this year, which is pretty exciting. Our mission, and I know Danelle had mentioned it, is to protect and improve resources. And we have 5 elected officials, and I do have them listed at the end of the presentation, but basically they develop policy, which we implement. They create long-range plans, strategic plans. We have watershed plans that we have to implement through the state, and they also set budgets. So that is what our supervisors do. As the staff, we take those policies and we create procedures to help local landowners carry out our mission. I broke that mission basically into 5 a little bit more digestible priorities: maintaining our soil, supporting biodiversity, reducing pollution to surface and groundwater being a big one as of recent, restoring maybe some opportunities with natural hydrology, and maintaining our healthy lakes and streams. All of our programs that we have, either through state and federal grants, would be used to complete any one of these benefits. So a little bit about Candioi County. 3/4 of our county is tillable acres, and we have about 26,000 irrigated acres, but a majority of that tillable acres is corn. As you can see, it's close to 50%. And these numbers are about 3 or 4 years old. The USDA does put together some records to understand what it is that each county has.
So a little close to 50% is corn, 30% is beans. We have some sugar beet production that has been expanding over the years, some hay and haylage. I think most of that is used for animals, and edible beans at 3%. This is obviously something that's important to us because in order to have this piece of economics, you have to have healthy soil. And so the economic vitality of farming and the farming community, which makes up 3/4 of our county, does rely on heavy soil and having that healthy soil. So it's pretty unique for West Central Minnesota to have the amount of tillable that we do have, but then also the amount of lakes and wetlands. So in our county, we have 160,000 plus or minus acres, and I say plus or minus because some of those wetlands seasonally flood, and then you can have haylage brought from it to feed your animals, and sometimes they're just wet and we leave them. But over 61% is wetlands in the county and 39% are lakes. So when I say that it's unique to West Central Minnesota, what I mean by that is to have the amount of ag and to have the amount of lakes in one county is pretty unique. So we do partner with the county on the Wetland Conservation Act, and those wetlands, which make up a substantial amount of area in the county, believe it or not, there's 8 different types of wetlands. So it does take some work to make sure that people aren't filling them in, disturbing them, and they are state protected and federally protected. I'm going to dip really quick into the estimated number of landowners that we've worked with historically and are estimated for 2025, the funding of projects. But basically, over the years, we've expanded our efforts, and it's unprecedented for counties, soil and waters now to have as much money as we do coming from state and federal grants. And where that money is usually coming from is from the Clean Water Land and Legacy Amendment. That was a voter-approved amendment from 2008. Where 3/8 of 1% sales tax in the state goes into a big pot of money, and then that's divvied out to protect land and water resources. So the funding that we have that's accessible to us is unprecedented, and the estimated amount of money coming into our local offices without additional capacity is pretty intense. But basically what this is doing for us is being able to service the number of landowners that are asking for our services. People are coming in looking for projects and services, for technical assistance, based on some of the gully washer rain events that we've had lately. Those landowners are in need of our services. I'm going to quickly go over some highlights for 2025. We have an opportunity to do incentives over CRP, which is a federal program, which our office partners with the federal employees on, and we have dozens of different programs which are flexible, and we also provide technical assistance. But our CRP one, this is new from the state, or Bowser, which is Board of Water and Soil Resources, and it comes out of the pot of Clean Water Land and Legacy, that logo on the left, where we are able to provide up to $500 an acre for people who are meeting some of our priority locations, meeting some of our priority practices, doing some of our priority projects. These are all done on private lands with private landowners who are interested in preserving and protecting their land. So that's a highlight for 2025. It's pretty exciting stuff. Another thing that we're doing is some soil health programming. We were the second highest funded soil and water in the state, which is pretty cool. And what we're doing with that programming is we're making payments to landowners to maybe transition to something more sustainable like cover cropping or a no-till. Producers can receive up to 85 acres for cover crops or $60 an acre for a no-till. These grants obviously do require a local match, and so the allocation that I'm requesting today would be part of that, just to help with our operations. But we're able to provide these types of programming to the landowners in order to basically preserve and protect our water resources, preserve and protect our soil health. So we were granted a little over $1 million on that one. That'll be rolling out. And another one that we were able to capture is a partnership with Virginia Tech, and this is also through the state. We were actually one of 8 counties in the state funded where we are actually working with Virginia Tech University to gain a deeper understanding of climate and climate resilience and greenhouse gases and greenhouse emissions. And this is going to generate guidance to help educate federal programs. So in Candy, Ojai, we get to be a part of that cutting edge development of potential climate smart guidance for ag in the future. That's pretty powerful stuff. This is obviously years and years down the road, but there were actually a few states that Virginia Tech is working with: Arkansas, Minnesota, North Dakota, and Virginia, and they were granted, I think, $200 million. And in Minnesota, we were one of the few that you see on the map where we are actually paying producers up to $100 an acre or $100 an animal unit to do different types of feed management, tillage management, grazing, cover cropping, and then just really gaining an understanding on how that could inform the guidance for federal programs in the future when it comes to climate smart implementation. And this is our 2025 focus area. So the board is very, very good about making sure that we are gaining access to as much information as possible to make the best decisions for our priorities. These I would consider the 6 focus areas for project implementation, but that doesn't mean we're not doing projects outside of those areas when they come up. But a lot of the things that we would be doing when it comes to concentrated efforts is just making sure outreach and engagement with the landowners in these particular areas is heightened. So the top right or the northeast part of the county is the Bonanza Valley Groundwater Management Area, where we know that we're having some issues with the groundwater levels in those areas. It's highly irrigated. And when it comes to working, we're focusing on that when it comes to well sealing, to cover cropping, to making sure that we're replenishing that groundwater supply. Down in the southeast, Big Candy Lake and JD1, or the green area, is the focus of our efforts. And we do have some state funding coming in each of these areas that we can focus on some bigger projects now. In the southwest, Chautauqua Creek is a focus. There hasn't been a big focus or hydraulic understanding in that area before, and we're working with the county and the Drainage Authority, as you guys know, to be able to understand how we can maybe not have the erosion that takes place after some of these major flashy systems come through. Up in the northwest, Shakopee Creek or CD, County Ditch 27, County Ditch 29, and Hussey Creek, all that water that flows into the Norway chain has been a priority for us over the last couple of years. We do have some ideas on implementation and maybe gaining some more hydraulic understanding. There's a lot of grassroots efforts up there, which is always great to have people who are engaged from the landowner perspective. And then in the central part of the county, Swan Lake, Wilmer Lake, Foot Lake, even Scottus Lake and Eagle Lake are some of concentrated efforts when it comes to implementation, but also understanding some of the health of these lakes and that lake chain, and then what it is we can do about that. And I'll just come back to the request that we have today. So all of the things that I mentioned of implementation would come out of this 2025 draft income and expenses. So we are requesting $536,000 today, and notice that our continued projects and services and the efforts that go into protecting the soil, protecting the groundwater, protecting our lakes is of our highest expenditure and our top priority. I do have, similar to you all, we have different districts and our Board of Supervisors are listed there, and they are elected officials just like you all that cover the entire county. But their districts are made up of the townships. So we have Steve Friedline, Danielle, and Tom, who had introduced themselves to you all before I started, Jane Youngkrantz and Brandon Smith. And of our staff listed, Ryan Peterson, Sandy Lammer, Ellie Faber, Aaron Wilson, and myself. That's it. Any questions?
All right, any questions for Ms. Johnson? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Margaret, thank you for the report. And just for clarity, I believe I understand that the majority of the request for the additional funding is so that you can leverage that money for other grant opportunities and that
That's
type
right.
of thing. Yes?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
I guess I got more of a comment than a question, but thanks, Margaret, for presenting. You know, I see it up in my area, and Roger sees it probably in his area the most. There's a lot of lakes up in our area, and people are really starting to talk. It's probably the biggest questions I get is lake quality, water quality, and things like that. As a farmer, I also see it coming that we're going to see a day, maybe sooner than we realize, that if we aren't doing these practices and we aren't doing these things, they're not going to pay us as much for our crop, and that I think is coming faster than what we realize. The consumers are asking and requesting us to be more diligent to the land than what we've been, even though we've been doing a good job. So I think these things are going to be a really important thing, and I think that it's part of our responsibility as people in the area to take care of the water and make sure it's going to be around for our children and grandchildren. So I thank you for what you do. I didn't really understand what Margaret's group all did when a few years back, and kind of always was a grumpy person against what they did. But I've gained a lot of respect and a lot of understanding of what they do and how they're trying to help. And I think that's an important part of what we should be looking at. So thank you.
Anyone else?
Um,
Commissioner Burke.
just a question and a comment. This past year, you were part of, or you did sponsor a educational training thing for, in conjunction with other people speaking as well, for people who live on the lakes and water areas. It could open to the public, and I attended that. It was excellent. Are there any plans to repeat that again in some manner? And was that coming directly from your program, or was that
Yeah, that was our office organized that. We do get so many lake associations reaching out to us, and we could burn every Saturday attending their meetings all summer long. Our attempt was to get all of the lake associations to come to us and do one event. That was our first try, and it was very well received, and a lot of people made the comments to have more. So certainly we can.
Just, you're talking about the one at the Legion
Spicer?
in
Yeah,
Spicer.
yes.
Yeah, I think we had over 120 people in attendance, which was a pretty good group of people, and we were educating on, shoreline practices and how you can mow your lawn and maybe add pollinator habitat. There is definitely talk of being able to do something like that maybe every 6 months to every year for sure. There was obviously a group of people who were really interested in and what the presenters had to say. But yeah, that was organized by our office.
A couple of other question too. I have a feeling that Candiac County is unique with the number of watersheds we have. Is that pretty accurate? And
Yeah, we have 4 major watersheds, and nearly all of the water that starts here flows out. So we're giving everyone our water. We're not taking on anyone else's. It's unique. It's also a challenge then to make sure that we're providing people clean water. And as maybe a lot of you know, being on the joint powers of any one of those watershed groups, it's intense conversations to have because it's organizing with folks from different counties about where the funding goes. And that funding mechanism does come from the state, which provides that unprecedented amount of money coming to our county. But the caveat is the local match, and all of the grants, like Commissioner Gardner said, is the state and federal grants require that local match. And the only way to make a local match is an allocation through county.
if I may, it appears to me we have a lot of major lakes that are the watershed heads of these, or the heads of these watersheds. And am I correct in thinking that this is an important focus and that we make this an important focus, even though we address all the other areas that impact this watershed as well as, the farmland and so forth.
Well, yeah, it's all tied together, right? I mean, these systems are very complex, and farmland affects lakes, and lakes and their ecosystem are affected by land use. So whether that lake is on, the cities around that lake, or it's a majority farmland around that lake, what we do on the land is going to impact that water body. So,
Thank you.
Commissioner Gill,
I just thought of something. We had a big rain last night, and I just want to highlight one of the projects that was done by Margaret. I was driving down the fairgrounds, and there was, honest to God, there was a brown river of water coming off the top of the fairgrounds down the new project. And I just thought, yeah, this was okay. And so then I went to the bottom, and I know where it goes into the lake, and there it was clear. And I thought, this is why these projects are important, because we used to see coming off that fairgrounds on that side brown water going right into the lake, and it was a lot of dirt got put in there, and I just was really impressed to watch how the filtration of that pond and setup that Margaret's group put together, how that really did work last night. It was kind of fun to see how it was clear water when it went in the lake, but it was brown, obviously brown, when it was coming down on the tar. So it was kind of fun to see that happen as it was raining hard last night. So.
Well, thank you. I got a couple of comments I'd like to add is, when I first became commissioner 11 and a half years ago, tourism was treated kind of like the garage sale. You did it when you had time and you put some resources to it. And as we recognize the importance of tourism in Kaneohe County, the second biggest industry in the county, the biggest in the northern part of the county, and understand the agriculture being the top one, we are kind of unique in how we bring the two together. And I was at a meeting, or not a meeting, it was a social event just Sunday evening, 3 days ago. And it was a bunch of young people there with a bunch more, even younger people, there had to be 30 kids there. And one of the persons that was there, we got to visiting about the water quality, and essentially said, he says, I hate to say this, but I think West Norway is lost. And I think 5 years ago, I heard the DNR talk about the challenges that chain of lake has, and that we're at a tipping point. And if we don't do something to fix it, we could lose Norway, we could lose Gaines, we could lose Henshin, we could lose Swan, on down the line. And I think we have the responsibility for those little kids to do what's right. So thanks for the work you do. And hopefully we can support what you need.
thank you.
We are not done, Trish. I'm so sorry. I just adjourned it. We're running a little late, and I appreciate your.
This thing? Do you need this one?
Well, I have mine. Which would you prefer to use when it's my turn?
Whichever one works.
Yeah. Good luck.
I can help you hook up.
So you are up next.
I am up
Yes,
next.
we are.
Okay, that's what.
And thank you again for your patience. Good to see you again.
Let's make it work.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe it's recognizing
Sorry, I'm
us.
stuck.
You're okay. There we go.
Voila.
Yes. All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to meet with you. I am Trish Sheehan. I am the regional director that works with Kandiyohi County Extension Office. And today I am here to talk with you about a potential staffing increase request for our extension office. So I want to share just a little bit about how we got to this point. We have an extension committee, and at our last extension committee, we went over the budget, and we know we have an increase in the MOA coming, but we also talked about what else might we need. And part of our conversation led us to an increase in support staff. We have currently our staffing situation. We have 2 full-time educators in our county. That's quite a bit more than what other counties have in our area. They do a wonderful job of delivering local programming, reaching out to multiple young people and partners and other youth serving organizations in this county. But we also have a 60% time support staff. And we will be having a full between 75% time and full-time SNAP Ed coordinator coming into the office as well. That's a lot of staff to support when you're at 60% time. Being here 3 days a week, trying to keep the office open. Right now, we let the public know that we are open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Monday and Friday. We ask that they call the office first because we can't guarantee that our 2 educators are in the office, that they should be out programming, or they might be meeting with partners, or they might take a vacation day, or they're prepping for work that they have that is upcoming. So that's our current staffing situation. I did share with you as well a staffing piece from what other counties look like in our area in supporting. They may have less than full-time support staff, but they're supporting less educators as well. So I wanted to share that so you could see that as well. Currently, our support staff, the costs for salary are $33,300. We have the fringe costs built into the budget at $5,000. And then we do have $500 travel built in. That travel piece is not always used. It depends if she or he, whoever is in that position, goes to a conference or takes some opportunities to do some staff development. And as I said, our office is open Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. So our request today would be to increase that position to full-time for the Extension office. There are many positives to that. We have 3 full-time educators, so that helps to support 3 programs because one of those educators does work with the Master Gardener program. And so that there's 3 programs: SNAP Ed, Master Gardener, and 4-H Youth Development. There are lots of opportunities for growth in this county. 4-H is a large program in this county and in our area for this area. But we also have a Master Gardener program that has, I believe, 23 Master Gardeners this year. And that is continuing to grow. They look to have Kylie told me, I believe they have 2 interns right now, and there's a potential for 3 interns. So we possibly could increase to 28 Master Gardeners over the next 1.5 to 2 years as well. Our educators are often working on weekends and evenings, so they are balancing their time, their hours at times, and coming in later. And so to have somebody in that office full time, 8 to 4:30, would be a very positive thing for our families and for the community when they're asking those. They want to bring in some of those items to the office to have us look at, whether it's bugs or leaves or whatever they think it might be in their gardens or in their yards. We have 2 options that Kelsey and I have talked, and we have 2 options that we thought we would present to consider. Option A would be that we have a county hired local county support staff. This would include their salary and their fringe, which is also not only the para, FICA, Medicare, but also their medical benefits as well. I did add in the travel on that because we have that as a part of our budget. So that would be a total of $76,930, which is an increase of over our current budget level of $38,630. Option B, there is an option to have a University of Minnesota hired support staff. And I did share that on this sheet as well, that we do have some counties that have a U of M hired support staff. That cost for 2025 is $75,000. In 26, that would increase 3%, and in 27, that would increase another 3%. This cost includes salary, fringe, travel, and any training that they would require or would like to look at to enhance their own skills. Some of the benefits, we thought we might share some of those pros and cons. If they're a county hired, they're supervised here locally by the administrator's office. There's an individual that supervises all the recruiting, hiring, interviewing, et cetera. That would be done here at the county level. Performance management is handled here at the county level, and then they would follow all county holidays. That is if it's a county hired. If it's a U of M hired, we do provide the supervision. I would be the supervisor for that individual. We take care of all the recruiting, the hiring, performance management, all of those pieces. Anytime we might have to deal with some challenges that happens with me and our HR department. We take care of all the payroll and accounting processes. They would follow university holidays, the same as what our local educators do now as well. I will tell you there's two differences in holidays. We do not get Veterans Day or President's Day. Instead, we get a couple more days over that winter holiday time. So not major differences in holidays. Questions that you might have. I've thrown a lot at you in a short amount of time, but we do think that this would be very beneficial and something we'd like for you to consider.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tricia, thank you so much for the report. And maybe this will be either you or Kelsey that can help answer this. But how the folks that are in that office now, are they county hired or are they state?
The two educators are a U of M hire, and then the office manager is a county hire, and has been forever. Yep.
Okay, so it's are we seeing any trend towards just having in the rest of the region just having you guys do it?
I think that really there's no trend. I would say I think it's just a matter of preference of the county as to what they chose to do at the time.
Okay, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So my question would be on that. Are you just asking for the extra amount to hire a full-time person, and then you decide if it's going to be that, or do you want us to make that decision? Because it's basically the same. I mean, we're talking $1,900 difference, but I'm just curious. Do you want us to make that decision, or do you want us just asking for the money? And
What we're asking for today is for the 2025 budget. We know that there'll be hopefully be an MOA. We know that's increasing, so that will be reflected in our budget. But we wanted to present to you today the ask to increase for 2025 that support staff position. Whether it's a university hired or a county hired position, that's really your choice. I don't have a issue one way or the other where that person lands for their employment. But in some counties, the reason they've gone that way is because it saved them some money. It saved significant money in some cases, and in others, it's maybe saved only $1,900. But that's really a choice that you, as a county, as a county board, get to make.
do you have a preference?
I do not. I mean, sometimes it's great when all of them are on the same holiday schedule. When two supervisors who are employed by the same organization can have conversations about how things can work in an office, but it works either way. It works very well with county hired support staff, and it works very well with university hired support staff. Our primary goal is that we help them all work as a team to have a great functioning office.
And then my last question, would it affect the staff if we switch from county versus going to extension service?
I think whether we go from, and Kelsey can help me here, whether we go from part-time to full-time, it could impact the staff member because you're offering a position with benefits now, whereas before you did not. And whether you go from county to university, either way, it would impact that staff person as well.
Would it affect the qualifications is kind of more what I'm getting.
I do not think it would affect qualifications at all. No, I believe qualifications that staff have would qualify for both full-time positions, whether it's a county or a university.
Thank you.
Other questions? It's an easy choice for me. The harder choice is gonna be that we have to raise our budget, and we're gonna be struggling with that. But in terms of if we do improve the budget, I just, seems like a no-brainer to me to let university manage it. And so, but we have to take the first step before we get to the second step. So
Right.
thank you very much for the information, and we'll probably be hearing more from you.
All right.
And we have your contact information if
Yes.
if we have any questions.
Absolutely. Feel free to contact me with any questions you have.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to the updates and appointments, calendars, committee reports, which is listed as an action item. I'm supposed to put it on our calendar. So we'll start with you, Administrator Baker.
Well, if I may, the action item would be to approve the appointment to the Extension Board. Commissioner Gardner, if you want to say a few words, you found this member for Extension within your district. So that we typically put these under appointments, and so that one does need action on.
If I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Kelsey. It's my distinct pleasure to be able to bring forward finally an appointment to the Extension Committee. And I'm bringing forward my friend Abdeweli Youssef. Abdeweli is the owner of Amin Grocery in downtown Wilmer. He's a board member of the Downtown Wilmer organization. And he is also an Elevate graduate. He expanded his business here about a year and a half or so ago, 2 years maybe, into this new space, and he's constantly working to improve it, and just a great community space, great community member, and I'm pleased to bring him forward for appointment.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Do we have to second those? Do we have to vote on those?
Okay, I will second that. Mr.
Commissioner
Chair.
Burke seconds. Any discussion?
A very good choice.
Thank you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carries.
You have his contact.
And then the other one is just continued for the board governance training for Tuesday, August 13th from 8:30 a.m. to 1. I've sent out this email. It will be held at the Kensington Bank here in Wilmer in their conference room on the second level. And Dave Amick wanted me to share for the goals today, for next Tuesday will be initial step to rebuild trust and respect, understand the value and importance of consistent roles and governance, and identify next steps to make a difference. And so we've been working through some of those details, and so I'll send out a reminder email and a note from Dave later on this week. And then I wanted to add, for discussion purposes, for the Transportation Alliance fly-in, which is held in September, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. Mel Odens and I have been on a monthly call with PSG, with our reps, Jordan and Emily, to review some of those options that I have stated at the board meetings. I don't know if the board chair would like to sit in on those moving forward. I've brought these up in the past, and so I think if that is up for a discussion, that should be held here. But we're wondering if any of the commissioners would want to attend in September, to let us know now to start having those conversations with PSG. In kind of the preparation and the planning.
So I would prefer to be in attendance again, as I have been in the past. And this one doesn't take a huge amount of planning. It's kind of a flywheel effect. It goes on every year, and there'll be participants from across the state of Minnesota. It'd be great if another commissioner could go along to start to get the experience if you've never been to Washington for advocacy and been up on the Hill. it would kind of affect our board meeting that week, because to be out there on time means to be leaving here about 10 o'clock in the morning on most flights, or even earlier. So I don't know about that part of it.
Yeah.
So any other comments? Commissioner Gardner?
I would have some interest in attending that. We can discuss off.
All right, so then for board report outs, and we go to work session about 15 minutes ago. So Dwayne, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I'll just keep it as brief as I can. I had basically 5 or 6 meetings. I didn't go to Pioneer Land Library meeting. It was really difficult for me, but it was my son's last baseball game for the year. So I told them I don't know if they had, I don't think they had quorum, which I feel really bad about. But it's it's one of those decisions sometimes you have to make between family and what you're doing as a county commissioner. But I did attend a road meeting with Mel Odens and then Wilmer Township and St. John's Township with a issue about 45th Avenue Southwest. We met and kind of talked about different options, and it's just kind of going to be an ongoing situation for a while till everybody can kind of figure out what we can do or what our options are. As far as the road needs attention is basically what it needs. And then I did a drug-free coalition meeting. I did the veterans boat ride in Spicer on Green Lake on July 25th. That was a great event. We have some great veterans here in the county, and it's really amazing when you hear their stories and what they all went through, and I don't know if I'll ever really fully appreciate what they all went through and what they've all done and the contribution that they gave to this country. So, and then I also had an ARMORS meeting, which is the Emergency Services Board meeting last week. And anyway, so I'm the chair of that. So that's one of those meetings that you have to attend. And it gets to be a long day, but I learn a lot. And I always feel like I'm kind of the least knowledgeable on there, but I try to learn what I can, and I try to help those guys, make sure that they have the resources they need to do their job. That's all I have.
Commissioner Berg.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I had an EDC meeting, but really not much to update on that. I think we've been fairly well informed of what's been happening there. I had a Prime West meeting with Commissioner Anderson and Commissioner Dale Anderson, and we looked at the budget, and one of the concerns we have is reinvestment this coming year, and what kind of grants we would have if we have those. And really, we're kind of wait and see because the budget is not quite in as good a shape as it was last year. But we do plan to, the grants we gave out for reinvestment were 2-year grants, that to continue funding those, and then we're just going to wait and see further down the road about the budget where we're at for reinvestment grants coming up. One of the budget items, a big item, was transportation, and normally that's not a big item, but all of a sudden trips to the cities for some special healthcare type of needs really increased and affected the budget. Also, the biggest meeting probably was the meeting yesterday afternoon, and I would like to ask Administrator Baker to be part of this conversation too. We hit on many items, and we're looking at our next board meeting, having an update of all the things that's taken place there. But we're moving forward on different timelines to get things accomplished as much as possible, and focusing on the building next to the Boys Group Home on Lakeland Drive and remodeling that, and doing some asking Turisha Construction to help us move down that direction. And in remodeling it, it's a good thing we hung on to that building instead of selling it. We're looking at options, and I know when we were having some financial problems in the past that, well, once you sell that, and we didn't. And it's a large building, a lot larger than I expected. There's 2 floors, and there's 4 bedrooms on each floor and 2 kitchens. And so it's possible to use some of the dollars from the MCIT insurance for relocating. And already we got $100,000 to use toward that possibility. But one thing I really want to share is one thing we have to do, and myself sitting on the board as well as that board, I wear 2 hats, but they will be looking at the rent. They're paying rent on that building and can't use it, and maybe requesting us to forgive any rent for a short period of time. But they also may be then looking to get out of the contract of that. And I think we have to discuss as a board in the future. And do you want to add anything to that, or?
Yeah, I think Commissioner Berg summed it up really well. They're looking to pause payments and kind of gather more information during this time. What would it cost to renovate the group home? What is the Candioi County's options if they were to end this lease with us? And so I think, like Corky was saying, Prairie Lakes has some homework to do, so does Candioi County. And so I think it was a very productive board meeting. I think I give credit to that joint powers to have a really good dialogue and to come to a conclusion and provide the staff a clear recommendation on how to move forward. So I think us staff, we have some work to do now in the next week, and I'll invite Holly Booth to the August 20th meeting if she's available to provide more of an update to the board.
I have a quick question. Our insurance policy, did it have interruption of business loss coverage?
They hold the insurance. Prairie Lakes does.
Prairie Lakes. Is it with MCIT?
Yes, it is. Oh, and that, yeah, to relocate, that part of those dollars were the 100,000 I mentioned was part of that.
Okay, all right. Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Primarily, at our last board meeting, had a full afternoon after that with West Central Mental Health Housing and Woodland Centers meetings. And then the following Thursday was primarily the EDC's day, where we were going through our regular Joint Powers Board meeting, and we concluded our agreement with our new executive director. And beyond that, supporting Hands Nurse Family Partnership, brief meeting yesterday. And I just want to encourage everybody to come out, visit us out at the Candioi County Fair. We do have several booths as a county in the Hall of Industry. And it looks like we're not going to be broiled inside that building this week. So I'm very happy about that, and just look forward to seeing everybody out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Dale.
Yeah, on the 19th, I had Chippewa Watershed, and they are getting very close to getting their one water, one plan done. There's already a request. We're going to get about $4 million of money to be spent in that plan every year, and there's already a $4 million ask. So there's definitely needs in that watershed that people are already asking for funding for. But it's getting close. And on that same order, on the 22nd, I met with, there's a group that's getting together on Ditch 27. Margaret came to that meeting. We had Fish and Wildlife was there. Scott Glupp was there, looking at options, and hopefully we can keep chugging down that road to do something with that project. We had this space study. Looking at that, we had a meeting on that on the 30th, and went to Prime West, like Corky said, on the 1st. And my tourism meeting got canceled yesterday, so we didn't have that. But the one other board that I am on is the fair board. So I want to reiterate what Steve was saying. Please come out to the fair. I mean, I drove around there this morning at 6 o'clock when nobody was there, and it's probably the prettiest and the most well-prepared fairgrounds I've seen in years. I've been on that board for many, many years. And it's green. We got rain. We've got a nice new entrance, and I think it's going to be a great week to have a fair. So take some time and come out. Prices are reduced for the gates this year. Everything is $5, so I think it gives people a better opportunity to come in and enjoy and not spend a lot of money. So take some time out and enjoy the fair.
Thank you. So the privilege of going last, some of the stuff's already been reported on, but the first one I have to report has not been. On July 22nd, I attended the CPT, Counties Providing Technology Board, Morris. the function of the entity is going quite smoothly. About a year ago, there was a change in the management, and with the current management, things are going very well. We're back on track with the counties in North Dakota that were in fear of having to find a new vendor at a much higher cost. So that's going well. In fact, it's going so well that the board moved to make a payout to the member counties in the amount of $40,000 per county. So rather than keep it in the bank, we decided to make a disbursement. On the 24th of July, I attended the Minnesota Transportation Alliance Federal Funding Opportunity Meeting. Public Works Director Mel Odens was also there. Though it's probably a long shot, we have some opportunities to explore at the federal level. But again, remains to be seen. I then hustled back to Wilbur and attended the public retirement gathering for District 8 Engineer John Huseby. On the 25th, as previously reported, I attended EDC meeting. On the 30th, as also previously reported, we had both a consecutively, we had a personnel committee meeting and a facilities committee. And then just the 1st of July, no, actually it would have been August 1st, I got that wrong, was retiring for a longtime employee out at the Glacial Lake Sanitary Sewer and Water District, Robert Sogi. He's been there so long that he could probably point where every pipe, water pipe and sewer pipe is in the district. And I say that facetiously, but it wouldn't surprise me if he missed very few of them. So then, and then later that afternoon was the groundbreaking that they had at the Soil Water Conservation District for their new building. I attended that. And then yesterday, I think you reported that we had an EDC broadband committee meeting yesterday. Okay, then I get that. And that's all I have. So we will not adjourn. We are going to recess and reconvene when and where? Here or downstairs? Or
Adjourn downstairs.
okay. So we will move from here to downstairs. And they're waiting for us, I suppose, because it's scheduled at 11.
Yeah, I let them.
Okay, so we are in recess. We'll meet back downstairs in about 5 minutes.